So I want to give people a little example about some of the things I started the day talking about when I was at home talking about. I was on a bus once, back of the bus, quiet, sat down, about a 13, 14, I don't always know the age, 13, 14-year-old white female in a very nice neighborhood sat down the other side of the bus, the back of the bus, and there's windows. And I asked her if she'd mind if I crack a window. It was a very cold day, but this bus is very stuffy. And I said to her, do you mind, I asked her politely, do you mind if I open a window just for a few seconds to get some fresh air? And one, she didn't seem to have really actually understood what I was asking. I wasn't asking to open a cold window and let cold air into the bus on a winter day, right? And she basically told me to shut up. She said, why would you do that? Why don't you just take off your stupid scarf? That's kind of how she talked to me. And I'm a 50-year-old white male she's never met before. That's not good. Now, I didn't do anything. I said, okay, took off my scarf, and I sat there for the rest of the bus ride. She got off at some point, and that was it. You would say, well, this is a child. Leave it alone. Strangers shouldn't interact with children. Doesn't matter how rude they are. And one, also, I will let you know this. I don't discipline children. I don't discipline other people's children. I don't see myself as the police force. I really don't, unless I see something seriously, seriously dangerous. They've gotten a few angry scowls from me when I've met, young boys or girls doing something particularly heinous, usually while drunk or intoxicated in some way. But that's about it. And, because even though she's essentially initiating violence with me, you might say I've initiated by even talking to her. That's a fair point, right? Maybe you would say young white girls don't want to be talked to by someone. And it was a routine kind of thing that goes on the bus. And I had no interest in speaking to her besides just to get her permission to open up the window, because if you open up the window, it goes to their side. It would have been just a few. I like to get a little bit of fresh air when I get on the bus because it's quite stuffy sometimes. And it's nice. Maybe it's more of a psychological appeasement than anything else. So I could live without it. And you get used to the locals. They're really quite aggressive people of all ages. So you're just like, oh, okay, I found another one. Now understand that was it. That was the end of it. So I consider it initiating violence. A feminist might say I initiated violence. There's lots of reasons why young white females are considered volatile for various social and biochemical reasons, and justifiably so. Okay? Put a circle around it, put a pin in it. Right? I have a sister who works with that age group, and so I know some about these things. At least how people talk about it, because no one really knows. And I'm not going to say I know, but people are fairly generous with young white females who can have a temper for various reasons, or they're just not nice people. That's also possible. I grew up in a lot of heinous circumstances. I never yelled at older people who asked politely to open a window for a few seconds, okay? Much less tell them to take off their clothing and tell them what to do like I'm a child, okay? Not that it was a bad suggestion, by the way, to take off my scarf. It's a good suggestion. I took it off and said, thanks, whatever, right? But it was delivered in a very angry way. She was defensive. Maybe it was her first time in the bus. Maybe she didn't get on the bus. A lot of young people, she's by herself. She's probably not thinking very highly of her self-esteem. The fact she has to get on a bus, her friends probably consider it beneath her. There's all kinds of other things that go into that defensive or angry or volatile attitude. Understood, right? But it's still an example to me of how white females can initiate violence. Even though you have a reason, you could have a reason the next time and the next time. And when she gets older and rapes somebody, she's going to have a reason for that too. Right? This is not a video about hurt white women. It's just saying, look at the conditions. Everyone has a voice. We can extrapolate from that. That's what we do. Especially if you're someone like myself. I've been raped. I've been sexually assaulted. I know what it feels like. It'd be nice to draw a hard line and say no one should ever speak badly to me. But if I initiate a conversation with a white female or a young girl on a bus for any reason, you get what you get, okay? I'm a man. I can take that, right? Granted. Doesn't mean I can't be upset about it, though, right? I don't distribute that to her. I don't go up to the next white girl and say, fuck you, you angry little bitches. But I'm not saying I don't ever feel that way, but I'm not going to, that's not pertinent to this conversation. And then a week ago, I'm walking down a trail, and somewhere quite narrow through the forest, and it goes to the place to leave. I'm one white male and by myself. I see a female-looking creature coming along. I don't like the look of her at all, because you can pick up people's energy. And I immediately close my aura, ground, put my head down, and I've had a long day as I do, and I'm walking, and I'm in no mood to talk, and I'm just going along my way. And this is one of the things as a man you can do around women, because women generally, it's assumed that they like it if you just just go by them and don't bother them. I assume that most women by default want a strange man to do that. And I'm looking down, like this, looking down at my feet, walking along, and she comes up to me and takes my time for 10 minutes, rattling on about this, that, or the other, in a very overly familiar way. At no point excusing herself, begging my leave, asking for my time, thanking my time, or apologizing for taking my time, going through various religious forms of hysteria that have nothing to do with me, and gets me to do her a favor and tell her about the local area, and doesn't even thank me, and then leaves. Disturbs my peace of mind completely. I was right about her. Did I ever lose my temper? Right? So women have a prerogative to take things from men, which men do not have. Now, I'm not saying it shouldn't be that way. Okay, I'm not sitting here saying, hey, man, you should start taking things from the bitches. But I'm just saying, just listen to me carefully, what I'm saying, what I'm not saying. Women do have a prerogative to take things from men. It's not their fault, it's the culture, it's me, I could be more assertive, this, that, or the other. Not all women do this, but women do different things. Understand that as the recipient of this type of thing, male or female, it is a remarkable thing to consider when you line up your experiences of this like kind. See, I didn't yell at her. She wasn't saying, could I please open the window for a few seconds, or could I please ask you a question about the area? And then I'm going, hey, why don't you just fucking read a book and go fuck yourself, right? Why don't you leave me alone? And she couldn't read my body language because she was in an excited state. Of course, a lot of people make that mistake, right? And this happens so much with women. Again, it's not like it's their problem and they should be raped or something. It's a problem, right? And when it's women's problem, it's women's problems. When it's men's problem, it's men's problem, right? And I'm a man, and I get approached by women. And the more comfortable the woman is coming up to me, usually the less I like it. And that gives you some idea about me, and it might give you some idea about them, depending on where you're sitting. But you line up these experiences, and what I find as a general rule is that women, from my perspective, and I know women have to deal with a lot too, have a huge prerogative to take my time or to molest me. That doesn't, if you would say, it doesn't seem to be morally consistent. I do for you, you do for me. I'm courteous to you, you're courteous to me. I'm pretty sure if I was walking down a trail and a woman by herself looked the way I was looking, in comparable body language, I would not fucking bother her, much less just start rattling on and taking her time and sharing my religious beliefs with her, or whatever the fuck they are. Now, I knew the woman probably had too much coffee. I knew she was just like trying to be in her polite social mode, and this is kind of her strategy. And these strategies are kind of ill-applied, and they're kind of inaccurate. They're kind of like bombs in Afghanistan. They kind of go this way and that. And I was sort of part of the collateral damage for the audience of this woman's excitable personality traits that didn't seem to really like what she was doing. And if I told her to shut up, she'd be like, wow, nobody ever says that to me. But I bet you a lot of people feel that way. And you say it's her, it's an individual, it's what she's learned. And it's also the region. I'm sure you can go to a lot of countries where women would never do that. If you're a female, you'd say you would never do that. I mean, yes, you can bother people and stop them and say hello and ask them questions, and some people might not like it. But she was literally rattling on for 10 or so minutes. And, she was occupying my time and taking my time. And women do this a lot to me. And I don't like it. Okay? So, let's quickly have a joint. Start a joint, and I'm going to get right into eating a little food, and we'll start our day. So, let's go into my bag of tricks here. Shit. I'm sorry, I'm just looking at all the stuff I carry. And I want to be safe wherever I go. Now, there's a difference between saying, this woman is awful, I hate her guts, she's a sexual predator, and saying, I didn't like the way this woman talked to me and it disturbed my peace of mind. Maybe she's not supposed to know what my peace of mind is. And one thing, a general complaint I have is that people, when you go and walk out in parks and things like that, isn't it a fair assumption that people are there to, if they're with their family, to enjoy their family, if they're by themselves or with their dog, they're there for some personal time. I'm not out here to socialize. I quite often, if you were to have a camera with me at all times and listen to it, I quite often apologize and beg the leave of other people, and I'm very quickly to excuse myself when I meet other men, so that I don't trespass upon their time. I often say to people, oh, I'm sure it's cold out here, I don't want to keep you. And the men and women almost always say, I'm fine, but they never think about how I might feel. No. Is that a hill you want to die on? Eh. It's patterns, right? And when you start wondering what you're stressed out about, after I got out of my bath yesterday and during, you know what I was stressed out about? The 5 minutes I was standing on the other side of the river and an old man was staring at me. And I didn't like it. And I turned my back, the sun was coming out, and eventually I looked around and I looked back at him, not in a menacing way, as if to kind of like, let's secure eye contact then. And I waved at him and he turned around without waving and left. That is violent. Okay? When on the other side of that river, these people are so territorial. And then you wonder, when you see me, why I'm not friendly. Because your people are not friendly to me. It's very inconsistent. And when you're friendly, man or woman, you're too friendly. There's one man I've met in the area who's perfectly friendly. He's out here, he's an alpha male, smokes his pipe, looks at his paper, stands in the same spot. He sees me, he doesn't have to like me, he doesn't have to like my lifestyle, he shares respect with me. You know why? Because he's secure enough to do that. You got you, I got me, ships passing in the night. It's not about, do you help secure me something that I like to secure about my relations with people? Or are you lending insecurity to what I consider my highly volatile social status in life? No, right? That's what predators are like. They always find a reason to leverage every interaction. Male or female. I focus on females because I get a lot of negative female attention throughout my life. The opposite sex does tend to have that happen. Okay. So, those people, so when I go through my day, yeah, I'm very aware. Thankfully, I don't know who that man is. He might have seen me and stared at me before, and now he's seeing me a little closer. They always seem to know who I am. I haven't spent a lot of time here for the last 6 or more months, and I've just started roaming the area again because, I get tired of the people in the other area. And pretty soon you find the predatory people around. So, and I know that to bring myself out of the bushes and to be anywhere near human beings is to expose myself to their various personality exploits. I have never in my life just out and out glared at someone because I didn't like the look of them. Do you know that? Never in my life would I do that. It's not in my repertoire. People who treat people badly, whom they've just met or don't know, are retarded gorillas. And that's kind of like the status quo around here. And the only way to fix that would be to fix the entire world. We should all have a high standard of living, right? And if we don't have one, we aspire to it, do we not? But money does not equate with it. It's important, no doubt about it. I'm probably at the bottom of the ladder of learning how important money really is to one's security, and I get that. That's where I have the most room to grow. But my perspective, such as it as a kind of like a life of a vow of poverty and celibacy, punctuated with the rape from men and women throughout my life, dislocated shoulders and all kinds of stuff. I got sexually assaulted at the hospital after I was sexually assaulted, right? So, by males and females. It's a common part of this society, the prerogatives that people take, and the interesting reasons why they do that. There is never a good reason, right, to do something to someone that demonstrates that for any reason, even accidentally or structurally, that you haven't made enough of a provision for their voice and their own safety and dignity. Once you do that, you've lowered your inhibitions. You might be doing something that people like you always do, but you're creating an act of violence. That's dangerous to them, potentially to you. You're creating a warp in the ethers. It's strange that in Star Trek The Next Generation, they do an episode about how the warp drive creates rips and warps in subspace. And they make some hums and haws about it, then they go on to the next episode. And again, it's meant to take you away from reality. The real warp in subspace and in the ethers is created by economic variations and variations in survival strategies and imperatives, particularly as they've been influenced or persuaded by particularly oppressive social, family, economic, and religious and cultural conditions in the language, in the behavior, in everything people do or understand to be important about signaling and communication. So it's always a very big deal, and it's always hard to talk about it, and we're going to be talking about it for 1,000 years, and still we won't understand the problem. Okay. Star Trek is actually a really good example of oppression and fascism, but that's another story. Okay, so let's put this away and go. I try not to stop too long when I'm starting my day and it's cold out. I like the opportunity to sit here and I say thank you to nature. It's been good to get a little food in my belly. Pack my bag up again. And get the water. It's quite a beautiful day in its way, so let's do it. And this way. I sort of decide whether to put on my hippie hat that Mother Nature gave me, because people don't always respect it. You know, getting sexually assaulted at the hospital is really weird because I'm so admire what people do in medicine. I'd be the first one to say I can appreciate, if not anywhere near understand, the rigors and the stresses and the demands of healthcare professionals at every level. Okay? And then if you wanted more money, better conditions, more time with your family, better benefits, earlier retirement, any number of things, or more say in who's your boss or how things are done, because I bet you a lot of nurses and technicians up and down know a lot about how things could be done better, but the people in charge of the budget and the politics of basically fucking people socially acceptable ways won't let you do that. I understand it's not black and white. I understand that when you go to be a nurse, you're not trying to be a psychopath, but people do break under the pressure, and people, when they break in different ways. Some people cry, and some people sexually assault people in their beds who can't move or fight back. It's just what humans do. You get enough humans in the world, that's what we do, okay? And is it women? Is it men? Is it oppression? Yes, oppression. Yes, it is. Of course it is. It's oppression. People are oppressed. They're under too much pressure, and there are pressures which don't allow them to say the things that they would, pressure or not, because learning how to say things under pressure or not is a good thing to be able to do, because the things you learn to think and say under the most extraordinary pressures, justifiable or not, are some of the most important things you usually have to say. And to not say them at all, which can be quite pleasant by comparison, right, is your prerogative, but it still doesn't really make you free if you're not doing it because you don't have the option to do anything else. I could say, I'm free not to be a fireman, but I don't want to be a fireman and I couldn't be a fireman. I could say, I'm free not to talk about everything that oppresses me, but that doesn't mean I'm not oppressed, right? I'm free not to jump out of a plane into Afghanistan and try to kill Afghanis. Oh, I'm so free. I'm free because I don't have to get put in a storage locker by a serial killer while I'm still left breathing into a baggie, right? I'm free. These aren't really very complete or legitimate examples of being free. Notice I don't use the word freedom. Okay? That's the lazy man's word, because freedom has the word dumb, and it's a free dominion. You're free under certain circumstances. That's what freedom means. Your freedom, right, like your liberty, is that of someone who works on a pirate ship that gives you, by comparison, 1 or 2 days off every lifetime to go fuck some local whore, okay, and have some children with her. It's not very nice. You want to be free, trust me, more than you want freedom or liberty. Liberty is nothing. It's time off for good behavior to go bang someone at the local shore. Right? When teenagers go around looking to mate under the effects of various intoxicants, they're enjoying their liberty. Right? But again, I've made sure to point out that as I talk, I'm talking about pressure, talking about depression. And yes, you can make the argument, and it has to stand there, more or less, that pressure is good, and people are bound to respond differently to different pressures and have different thoughts about what they are and whether they're ethical and what their outcome is on various scales and thresholds of human observation and theory and speculation and cogitations, indeed, that can be stirred up by conditions quite at variance with what any number of people might expect from a world that gives you so much so-called freedom. My name's Landon, and I have over 200 IQ, but that doesn't matter. And trust me, I'm not going to rob you of anything but your illusions. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm doing cunnilingus. It's like, I'm so socially advanced. Hey, I'm doing cunnilingus to the 0 in the number of views of this video. I love you. I want to make you orgasm with more 0 views. I mean, because what is my audience, really? I mean, how many people are smart enough to listen to me? I mean, the only people who can have probably already had these thoughts. Or, if you really want to be fair to yourself, you've had these thoughts in much deeper than words, in your emotional, instinctual body. And they're somehow spread across generations of your family. And in that part of your life where you look, hey, what's down deep there in the darkness? Difficult as it is, that might help us to at least understand some of the more incomprehensible aspects of our life. Even though everyone's doing the best they can. And Uncle Mort, it was probably his time to die of multiple complications when he went to the hospital to have his fucking tooth removed. So what can we look at that exposes us to a concept about what happens when something can expose us to accident and injury from any number of hardworking, diligent, professional people, which is disintegrating energy. If someone's being domestically abused, as I was when I went to the hospital with a dislocated shoulder, you're more likely to be abused by other people, right? The demonic part of the human mind, in the pretext of various professional associations, will generally tend to behave in an overly familiar manner with people who have already been treated badly. It's an awful problem in the delivery of services to affected or needful human beings. Right? So people who deliver, from missionaries to food, should be taught how to be respectful to the local population. Right? Let's say you're delivering food to some place in Lower Saigon. Right? You don't want to insult them. Here's an example. Let's say you're home with your family, and the Vietnamese take control of your country. Right? And they come deliver some food to you, and they give you a bag of rice and a copy of the Quran or something, right? Are you insulted? if they take your TV away and put up a picture of Ku Hung Lao, right? Well, when you go over to Vietnam and take a picture away from the guru and put a TV, right, they might consider that insulting. Right? You have to kind of know the people you're dealing with, right? It's a big mistake that Americans make in other colonial type countries. They travel and they don't really pick up, probably not even among each other. It just shows in foreign countries more often. They don't know how to read body language. They don't know how to see situational aspects. Situational awareness where you're making your judgments, your instincts are picking things up. You know what you like, you know what you don't like. You go into a restaurant in a foreign country, you're like, whoa, I don't want to be here. You trust your instincts, you trust your sense of smell. But other people in your party be like, wow, that smells great. They're ready to try something different. And maybe those people die of food poisoning. Because lo and behold, it was made with a lot of tap water with parasites that you haven't gotten used to yet. So there's all kinds of reasons to be cautious, right? Taking a risk for its own sake, you know? But you don't go into a restaurant, turn up your nose and say, ooh, you buggers, I can't eat here, right? You have good reasons not to eat there, but there's no reason to insult anybody. You're different, your body's different, you come from a different region, right? And if you're a sophisticated enough person, you know that. Even without knowing about parasites and like, you're still respectful. You can still be safe and be respectful. You don't come into someone's house and say, ugh, it stinks in here, right? But I've been in people's houses that stink. I've been in trailers. And then you know, their cars, you know, and people sometimes they smell musty. I knew this trainee who, he would always invite me to his trailer, and he would entice me to buy food for dinner, but he would never pay me for anything. And he was inviting me over a lot, so I was basically feeding him at that point. I was like, he had turned me into an employee. And for the price of maybe smoking half of his Jack Herrera joint and forcing me to listen and play endless refrains of his stupid music and poetry, and the $20 or more that I contributed to a dinner consisting of boiled vegetables, right? And I was to be grateful for this. This person, you know, was practicing and I was accepting narcissism, right? And you can never do enough for these people, and he would criticize me and laugh at me. And he really thought this was a normal relationship with someone, friendship. And eventually I just walked away. But it was fascinating, and I would often have a stomach ache. I would often have farting and gas, which I get from very a lot of cooked vegetables and soups. Vegetable soup kind of gives me gas, but maybe it's just one or more of the vegetables in it. But at the same time, it was happening a lot. Since learned it, they were sort of poisoning me. You know, their whole attitude, because they had a disintegrating energy. Turned out he wasn't a transvestite so much as he was impotent, in his own words, and he had traded all of his baggage for female clothing, for a costume. So you see what costumes do in cult and economic oppression and theater, and how it lowers your inhibitions about your behavior to other people, and how narcissism and psychopathy, violent personality types are exactly what you'd expect within the context of cult psychology and economic and religious oppression, right? Okay. So I learned a lot of things from this person. He's a very creepy human being. They like to control, they like to micromanage. And I can take a certain amount. Like, I can be around a narcissistic sociopath because I understand it's a disease. And I don't always take it personally. They'll humiliate you. You spend a couple days away from them, you get over it, you go back. You think, hey, I feel better now. Right? Because they're not out and out to hurt you all the time. It's more like they need to hurt you whenever they feel like it. And it kind of keeps you peaked. It keeps you on your heels. So they establish a kind of dominance in this way, whether they know it or not. But they can never get enough out of you. And they don't really know how to have a real friendship with anybody. Except people who worship them. Except people who worship them. Right? They want people to believe in their particular idea about life. They want to be on a stage. They want to be adulated. He liked being around me because I attracted female attention. That was the only reason. His sexuality, such as he explained it to me, meant that he wanted usually a young, even underage female, his fantasy, to strap on a dildo or to use his dildo to fuck him up the ass. That's what he wanted. So, but he told me he was impotent. He had children, but he couldn't get it up anymore. That was the cost of his life. It's cold out. Really cold. The air is cold. Let's see. Oh, kingfisher. Hey. That's a good sign. It's strange how I don't see police officers around anymore. Yeah, it's really nice. You can kind of feel the pressure of it. You know, being stalked by the police. And then you learn a lot. You know? I said 2 years ago I was going to make sure I find out a bit more about how the police really operate, and I did. And I know everything I need to know now. And I was terrified. I mean, it created dreadful panic attacks for days on end, or at least every day, and day after day. And oh yeah, you know, it's like they're dreadful, dreadful people. And to tell you what incited this type of behavior, it makes it even more horrifying. Right? It's simply complaining about patterns, very noticeable patterns of extremely unprofessional and violent behavior in different organizations, and particularly public service-oriented institutions. So, you can get people in a cult to do anything, really. A policeman's like no better than a $5 hooker. You pay them enough and they'll do anything. They'll do anything for Queen and country, right? Anything. That's their history. They'll do anything. They're all sexual perverts. Right? They are. I mean, I don't mean that as an offense. Right? The RCMP in Canada, they're all sexual predators. They're all perverts. And, if you know that, they get something they want, which is to scare you away. That's a real good crime deterrent. Right? You don't want to be around these people. Like, don't do crimes. RCMP officers are sexual predators. Their job is done. They could just drive around going, I'm a sexual predator. I can do what I want to. People are not going to do anything.